That's the most difficult question. My name is Thais Russomano. I'm a medical doctor, originally from Brazil. I dedicated about 20 years of my life to clinical medicine, including intensive care and emergency medicine, and then shifted to academia because the dream of my life was space. And of course, you don't find astronauts in hospitals. So I shifted to academia and start researching and teaching about space physiology, aviation medicine, which was, I believe, a good move, as my passion for space started when I was very little, like 4 or 5 years old. So it was a way to combine, let's say, my profession, medicine, with my vocation or my dream, space. So space medicine is really my niche, the place that I like to be and to work. It's quite an interesting question because I have been asking this question before, as you can imagine, many times, and I asked my mother because I was so little when I started my passion for space, that it was difficult to for me to understand or to remember. Unfortunate for her as well. So it is. I was at that time I was living with my mother and my grandmother, my mother's mother, because my parents were divorcing, and and I I don't know. I just felt this attraction for the stars, and nobody in my family is related to physics or astrophysics or astronomy. Nothing to do with space. On the opposite, everybody is a lawyer. My mother, my father, my grandmother, grandfather, and cousins, everybody. Just one uncle, my mother's brother, was a doctor as well. And I remember that when I got to the age of, let's say, define a profession, that I had to do my tests to get to the university. Um, my family was a bit concerned that astronomy or astrophysics was something out of this world for them, but astronomy was a kind of profession that wouldn't allow me to self-support myself, and so I had to choose one of the normal, in inverted commas, profession, like either to be a lawyer, that's what they wanted, or a doctor, second choice, of course, or an engineer, or an architect, or things like that. And I was convinced that medicine was the route to go, my path, and that astronomy would be my, um, or space in general, would be my hobby. Because during my entire childhood, everything was related to space. I established a club for children about astronomy. Everything that I was reading was related to the scientists like Galileo or Newton or Kepler or Copernicus. I call them my friends. So it was like very strong attachment to space science. And I said, well, maybe I should be a doctor, and then I will have astronomy, astrophysics, whatever, as my hobby. Yeah, well, it started, in fact, back when I was still being a doctor, and I wanted to shift to academia, but I needed to do first a master's degree and then a PhD. And then there was just one course open to civilians in the world at a master's level in aerospace medicine. One course, believe me. And this course was in Dayton, Ohio. So first I went to the United States, to Dayton, Ohio, to do my master's degree in aerospace medicine. This course was going on for many years when I got there, and stayed on for many years after I left, many years. Unfortunately, it's not running anymore. But after that, I thought, well, maybe a good experience now would be to explore the space market and academia, the environment of academia in Europe. And during my master's degree, I got a scholarship from an academy that nowadays I'm a member. At that time, I was a student. And uh, how do I say, the boss, the chief, the person responsible for this scholarship commit was Professor John Ernestine, who was a professor at King's College in London. And he invited me to do a PhD with him. So I came to London first for my PhD. Uh, After that, in fact, I had the opportunity to work for a couple of years at the Institute of Aerospace Medicine at the German Space Agency in Cologne. Uh, I didn't like very much the pace of a space agents. Excellent projects, don't get me wrong, very ambitious projects and so on. But at the same time, more let's say, with a very strong political side and a bit slow. So that's when I decided. I had my medical degree, I had my residence training, I had my master's degree, I had my PhD, I had experience in a space agents. So that's when I decided to um, dedicate myself to academia, to work in a university. Initially, I started in Brazil, but because of my links with King's College and the German Space Agency and the other places, it became very international. This place that I established, it was called Microgravity Center, or Micro G for short. And that's where I start, let's say, teaching, motivating students from different areas, not just medicine, but that had, let's say, the final goal would be to contribute for human space exploration somehow. Could be pharmacy, physiotherapy, psychology, etc. And and that was, let's say, how uh, I was progressing in my career, writing articles, books, this and that, and supervising students and having students at the same time here at King's College. Well, in the end, King's established a master's degree, the only one in Europe at that time in space physiology and health. I was the vice director and a professor in the masters. Had students. We strengthening our connection between Brazil and England. But after a certain point, I decided to leave Brazil for good and try, to to be more independent. That is my, it was something very important for me. I thought that I was, or I think that I am mature enough in terms of science and my academic experience and so on, to be uh, working for myself. So that's why I established a company in the UK called Innov Space that has a very strong educational side. So with webinars, courses, lectures, and I work nowadays in the way that I think that it is uh, very good, which is extremely international, very global, with, let's say, countries in Central America, South America, Africa, Asia, Europe, and so on. So this is something that made me very happy. With Innov Space, we decentralize the knowledge of human space exploration, and my attempt is to uh, give courses, for example, or lectures in different universities. Could be in Zimbabwe, could be in India, and motivate them to start research. Now, with my experience of establishing research labs and centers in different places in the world, I can easily accommodate or customize this idea to, even if the country does not have a good way to invest, a good a budget to for a space lab, uh, and I'm succeeding in this sense. I think that sustainability in I think that there are many meanings. It's when you talk about sustainability, uh, most of the time it comes to your mind, the money needed for something, and that the money should stay there, or at least should be renewed somehow to keep it sustainable. I think that there is another component there that I learned with time, that is the human resources. For example, I got to a point at the Micro-G Center in Brazil that it was more popular than the uh, other places here in Europe, and well, in Brazil it was the only place, but wouldn't there was no way for someone, even Elon Musk with all his money, to buy the Micro G, to buy the lab, the equipment, whatever we had there, placed somewhere, because what we needed was the group that I created. The group went from, of course, technicians, students, undergrad, grad students, professors, researchers, international collaborators, and so on. So for me, when we talk about sustainability, I think that money is essential, but an ecosystem of people is mandatory. And in my opinion, it is beyond money, because money will come as a consequence. That's what I do when I try to establish, for example, programs in the Philippines, or Nigeria or Romania, place that I'm working. So it is first to work with people, to make them enjoy what they are doing, and have their time and dedication for whatever we are establishing, and then very naturally money start coming in, and the space for, room for research is easily established. So I think that for me, sustainability is equal people. Yeah, it is a very interesting question, because as I mentioned in the beginning, I was raised by my mother and my grandmother, and my grandmother was a very unique type of woman. She was born in 1919. So at that time, imagine in the south of Brazil, in a small town, it was not expected for a woman to work. She, in fact, decided, because she was very intelligent, she decided to study law and became a professor, and was a very important person in this area of law. And one day when I was young enough so that they couldn't leave me at home, sometimes they took me to congress or meetings, because I couldn't be just there by myself. I think that I was maybe 7. uh, I saw my grandmother running a conference and inviting, everybody, the men, all of them, I'd say that 99% of the audience was made by men, and the people work with my grandmother also men. And then I remember that scene. uh, I said, Grandma, how do you feel being the only woman, or the woman running everything, with so many men around you? And then she said to me, uh, I don't see men, and I don't see women. I see people. And I think that was something that changed my life forever. So I agree with you. I am a woman from Latin America. When I started my career, I was completely unknown in this area. I just had my passion. I had to fight a lot for my scholarships to get the scholarship to pay for my master's and my PhD in Brazil, from Brazil. But besides that, I also not just I was much younger. So imagine a Latin woman, young, civilian, because it's not just the an area dominated by men. It's an area dominated by men that comes from the military. I always have this joke that I love to go to a aerospace meeting in space medicine or aerospace physiology, because it's so easy to go to the toilet. Normally, you have these big queues for women going to the toilet in whatever it's, could be a bar, could be other places. But in that precise environment, the queue is with the male's toilet. The female toilet is completely free. It is because nowadays a bit different, no? But imagine that in the 90s, no? You have to go back in time, and but I think that what helped me was that situation that my grandmother taught me. No, I never ever was embarrassed or intimidated by men, by being in a place where 90% were men, and I was there either giving a lecture or running a meeting. For me, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman or 100 men or 100 women. For me, that's the same. And I think that it came from that moment, that I think that because I saw her being very comfortable in her position, and I saw her and I heard her telling me, I just see people. So that's what I do. I see people. And this also helped me with the possible differences between countries, because of course Brazil is a developing nation. So I had everything against me, uh, being from Latin America, being from Brazil, woman, young, civilian. Oh God. It is not I don't need to add anything else for other barriers. And but for from the start, I was somehow accepted and admired by my colleagues, professors, and whatever depended on me, I did. To study, to work hard, to participate in meetings with sometimes many financial sacrifices. I slept in many airports in the world to pick up the first flight in the morning to somewhere because it was cheaper, uh, and I was paying for that. I was staying very poor and simple accommodations. It never affected me, never ever. I was always with this, let's say, something that was above and beyond that. It was my dream. I felt alive when I was basically interacting with space medicine, space physiology, whatever. I don't know. I don't know why. Um, as I said, it started when I was 4 or 5 years old. My mother says sometimes that she thinks that even before that, because when I was 5, my father at that time, because they were divorcing, was living in Rio de Janeiro, and we were living in Pelotas, which is in the south of Brazil. And she took me to see him in a kind of school holiday, I don't know. And and she said that it was raining a lot at that time for some odd reason. So it was difficult to have to take me to a place to play, or it was I was confined in the apartment because it was raining a lot. So she had the idea to take me to a planetarium, and she said that I was in heaven. uh, when the show ended, it was of course a show for kids. I was crying and crying and crying. I didn't want to leave. She had to promise to buy a book about astronomy, so we could leave and she would read the book with me. But she said, "Well, you were 5 at that time." That's I remember. And I took you to the planetarium because I already knew about your passion for the stars. So for sure it started before that, but for what reason, no, nobody knows. Well, I had this dream to become an astronaut, and I think that I was very prepared for that when Brazil select the first astronaut. But the Brazil decided to select in among the military. So as a civilian, I had no chance to apply to compete. Uh, so it was a very difficult moment in my life because by that time I was with my master's, my PhD, my experience in space agents, and so on and so forth. So I was extremely qualified. Uh, I was very sad after that moment, and I decided then to keep my dream alive by now becoming a professor, a researcher in this area. What I can dream now, I don't think that I will be an astronaut. Although I participated in parabolic flights on the European Space Agency, so I have an idea of what microgravity is. But I think that it is, I would love to succeed in this idea, uh, this initiative that is to make space physiology, space medicine more popular through courses or lectures, motivating men, women, girls, boys from different nationalities, uh, and because it is still a very small area if you consider science in general or even space science. If you think that, for example, there is no master's course anymore in Europe in space physiology or medicine, no course in States. So it is very unique area, and I think that to make it popular is very important because that's what we are becoming. We are becoming a space being. We are becoming a cosmic being. Now we are gonna be Homo sapiens sapiens spatial. I don't know, something like that, because we are talking about living and working progressively in orbit, and maybe to establish a habitat on the moon, maybe one day on, I don't know, Mars. And if you look at the idea of uh, being somehow uh, um, someone from Earth, from an Earth being living and work on the moon, it is it's a completely different philosophically talking. We are in a moment that I think that we, like humanity, we are in a moment that we need to decide what we have to do, what we should do in terms of our body, our mind in space. Are we are going to start reproducing in space one day? Are we going to have babies that are born on the moon? All that are questions that nobody knows the answer. I feel very sorry, in fact, when I look to the history of human space exploration, that from 1972, when the last Apollo mission happened on the moon, Apollo 17, and now, no, so it is decades that we missed the opportunity to learn more of how to really live and work and research, conduct research in a lunar environment. It is a huge gap in terms of science. It is a huge gap from imagine 1972 till now. It's over half a century.